Welcome you all for this today's session on strategic procurement. Very important topic, but at the same time often overlooked in various industries. That's what I thought. Let me make detailed discussions on this, detailed presentation on this. I am your facilitator, Manoj Yermalkar. I am heading procurement I head procurement in one of the largest pharma solutions providing organization in India. Its name is Associated Capsules Limited. I am head of procurement for their engineering division, and other aspects of my profile are mentioned in the subsequent slide. But before that, let's start. So this is about me, friends. More than 26 years in supply chain. Currently head of procurement in ACG Engineering, and most importantly, I'm associated with ISM-INDIA for quite some time as their ambassador for Pune. ISM-INDIA, you all know, is a non-profit organization and dealing into their main mission is to create more and more leaders in supply chain. They uh, train the supply chain professionals. Their objective is to transform the supply chains, and their global certifications are really, changing the careers of the procurement professionals or supply chain professionals. So it's one of the most renowned institute in India, and I really feel proud to be a part of ISM India in Pune. It's an honorary position, but yes, it has really helped me a lot in terms of enhancing my own skills in supply chain management. In my last more than 2 decades of journey, I have worked in various industries, have set up the supply chains in India, abroad, and I, by qualification, I'm a mechanical engineer and did a postgraduate diploma in international business through Symbiosis University, and then I have various certifications to my forte. I really feel myself fortunate enough to lead the supply chains in various great industries, and that has really helped me making a seasoned supply chain leader. And that's why I take this opportunity to use my knowledge and deliver some of it to the professionals like you. During my available time, I try to create some, the material related to supply chain with an objective of of course put it on platforms like Udemy, Thinkific, and all other small platforms wherein there is a great footfall of supply chain professionals. So objective is mainly to give back to the society, and that's all about me. So without taking much of your time, I think it's let's start our today's discussion. So first thing first, the key takeaways of today's webinar. We are going to discuss all about strategic procurement in the available time, of course. We are also going to discuss about the principles of sourcing. We are also going to discuss about the tools of the strategic procurement, that is strategic sourcing and category management. We are going to throw a light on the strategic creation in procurement, the benefits of strategic procurement, and last in the sequence but not least in the importance, the agility and resilience, the two common buzzwords you guys must be hearing ever since the pandemic hit. So what is agility, what is resilience, and how strategic procurement can benefit in creating supply chains or making supply chains more agile and more resilient. We are going to discuss about that also. So no discussions about strategic procurement or procurement as such can start without giving a brief comparison between procurement and purchasing, because many times I have seen people getting confused in the this particular function. Even though the function is mature enough, it has all ingredients which are required for to make it as a strategy or to name it as a strategic function, people still consider, or the organization still considers that function as a purchasing function, which is not the case. And this is the difference. If you see procurement, see, objective of both functions, be it procurement or purchasing, is to acquire goods and services. But there is a great difference between these two. One is in procurement, if you see, the source evaluation is done predominantly because it uses strategic sourcing as its tool to acquire the uh, sources, qualified sources. Whereas in purchasing, the main activity is to evaluate the quotes because they get the indents and then they start the purchasing process. Needs and specification identification is core activity or important activity which is being done in procurement, because they simply don't act on the specifications which are received on as is basis. They make sure that, at least the team makes sure that the specifications are understood correctly, corrected if required, and then the actual need is identified, and then the supply market is approached. That is the difference, or that is the main activity which procurement does. Whereas in purchasing, once the indent is received, the subsequent course of action starts, like, floating the inquiries, getting the quotes, comparison, and then buying. The effective negotiations or systematic negotiations using various tools in the negotiations is being done in procurement, whereas in purchasing, the negotiations are purely based on the quotes. It's L1, L2, L3. Sort of viable competition is created amongst the available sources, but majorly the tools, not the systematic tools, are not used in the purchasing. Whereas in procurement, there are various tools like volume bundling is there. Then you can say the uh, creating a great competition among suppliers is there. There are e-auctions is there, reverse auction is there. There are many tools which are used in systematic negotiations. We are going to discuss about effective negotiations in the next month for sure. And then the procurement doesn't end their activity after the procurement of the goods and services, because they continuously keep generating the ideas related to cost management, which is one of the most important expectation of any management from a supply chain professional or procurement professionals, to improve the bottom line of the organization. Whereas the supplier payments are released, and then the job of the purchasing is over in many of the organizations. So let's now move on and understand the three types of procurement. One is operational procurement, wherein typically the standard parts, the consumables, the MRO kind of items are procured. And there, why it is called as procurement? Because it has some flavors of procurement. It is not purchasing per se, but it is not strategic procurement. Tactical procurement is one step before the strategic procurement. In tactical procurement, typically, if you see, the time frame or the time period to decide any strategies or any actions is usually 1 year or even less than that. So if you have a 5 years plan in terms of strategy creation, then you can break it down into various period, and that is called as tactical procurement. Whereas in strategic procurement, it's all about strategy. It's all about taking actions in coherence with the strategy of the organization. It has spend management as one of the most critical tool. It has technology, digital tools, and this is the basic of strategic procurement. Of course, we are going to discuss what exactly the strategic procurement is, but just to give you a difference, just to show you the difference between the three types of procurement, uh, this particular information is displayed. Now, of course, our today's topic, what is strategic procurement? If you see, strategic procurement is different from purchasing and procurement as a normal procurement, in the sense it takes into account a long term objective. It takes into account the long term strategy of the business. When we say strategy, it is an organization strategy. Strategy for each organization is different. So first the organization strategy is created, and then the procurement team make sure that that strategy is aligned to their supply chain strategy or procurement strategy. That is the main strategic procurement does. Strategic procurement also uses the data and technology to create lot of insights, to also take a lot of to create lot of historical statistics and generate the insights and help management in taking the long term decisions. Here the spend is the most important document which is used to analyze the overall organization's expenditure, overall organization's purchasing volume, and then it is categorized into various segments. And for each category, for each SKU, the strategies are defined. So that is the main activity which strategic procurement does. So if it is used systematically, it can it can create lots and lots of information about what has happened up till now, say over a period of last 2 years, 3 years, and how the business, how the procurement function is going to behave in the future period. It also helps in taking various decisions, like which is the area which needs a lot of attention, which atoms or which supply chain partners need a strategic alignment, strategic partnership, so on and so forth. So, systematic vendor evaluation. I think there is some disturbance we are getting from somewhere. Yeah. So, systematic evaluation of the suppliers, spend management, aligning organizations' objectives, and making the the function, supply chain management or procurement function more agile. That is. Yes. Hello, Ria. Can you mute the?
Sure, sir, sure. Please continue.
Yeah. Just a basic difference between upstream strategic procurement and downstream operational procurement. You can see at the left side, you will find strategic procurement, which starts with identification of the needs, then market understanding. When we say market, it's a supply market, then category management, then strategic sourcing using these two tools, then making contracts, indulging into contracts, ensuring that the contracts are adhered, and then of course supplier management. If you see at the right side, it's receipt, order placement, material follow up, receipt of material, quality management, and sort of continued refinements. This is what the operational procurement does. It's clearly visible here that on the left side, strategic procurement is a strategic function because it takes into account everything, like identifying the correct needs, adopting a systematic approach, and then using the tools to acquire the goods and services. Whereas in operational procurement, you will find more of a transactional activities. This circle will show you three things. One is at the core of strategic procurement, there is procurement analytics and data management. Then it will show the processes of the strategic procurement, which starts from obviously the strategy creation within function, then using the tools, category management, strategic sourcing, then contract management, making the contracts, and then supplier relationship management or supplier management, and finally P2P. Then you will find the key enablers also, like digital solutions and tools, organizations capability and culture, and the initiatives management. You will see it in the subsequent slide. At the core of strategic procurement, as I mentioned, the data management and procurement analytics is there. Friends, data is very, very important. In fact, in my more than 2 decades of career, what I have observed that the organizations where I have worked, wherever there is a purified data, wherever the data is systematic, it is segmented into various and the required buckets, the data has created wonders. Even I was coming across one of the quote in one of the newspaper or probably in one of the search engine. It's going to be an as important resource as fuel in the future, because with data you can use you can create lots and lots of information you can generate and take various decisions in accordance with that. Then procurement analytics. These days you must have seen analytics is the most important tool which is used in various which has been implemented by various industries to make sure that for all their KPIs, the management will understand how the procurement function is managing their all deliverables. And the KPIs, when we say cost management is there, inventory management is there, quality management is there, working capital management is there. So if you have a systematic data, then you can use it in the analytics, and then you can derive the long-term strategies out of that with the help of the historical data or with the help of statistics. Enablers of the strategic procurement are digital solutions and tools. Various digital solutions and tools are available today. Culture of the organization should be such that it is having basic nerve center is the management. The management, they should have a culture of percolating down the strategies to the various functions, including the procurement. It should also have a culture of supporting the initiatives management or idea management within the function. And if these with the help of these core activities and with the help of these enablers, if, if these are available in your procurement function, then it can be considered as a strategic procurement, provided it has the other principles also, which we will see going ahead. Before that, what's missing today? Why it is considered as an overlooked approach? Because clearly the alignment is missing. As I mentioned, the organization's objectives and the procurement's objectives are not, or the procurement's strategic objectives are different. Company is going in one particular direction and the function is going in other direction. So that alignment has to be clear. There has to be a complete coherence with the organization's objectives. Many functions are away from digitization. Many companies are away from digitization, and procurement is not insulated from that. So, merely implementing SAP or merely implementing some tools like Power BI and it's not. It cannot be said that the complete digitization is there. The function has to be digitized. There has to be digital tools from end to end. Sorry, and that is being observed as a missing element in many of the functions. There is a disconnect between plant procurement team and the central procurement team. You must have seen many companies these days do not believe in decentralization. They believe in centralization, and of course, with the decentralized team members, procurement team members. But the that disconnect is there. So what happens with that? Whatever organization strategies are there, whatever organization challenges are there, those are typically known to the central procurement team, but because of this disconnect, they are not been percolated down, and that really makes the function like a transactional function. Non-involvement of the management, I can say, or non-involvement of many team members. What happens is that the purchasing or the procurement procurement team typically, I'm sorry, I'm using purchasing procurement, but mainly let's consider that the procurement team is working in one particular direction, or the procurement team is basically uh, not considered as a part of the overall business. It's considered as a resource function because there is no involvement of the cross functional team members. And last but not the least, again, there is no specific procurement team which has a knowledge of uh, creating strategies, understanding long term objectives of the business, understanding the overall business environment. So whatever team members are there, those team members are not trained properly. It's not that the team members are having any there are issues from the team member side. There has to be a proper training mechanism in place, which is not there, and that is what is missing today. So that is one of the aspect why it is called as overlooked approach in the business. Before that, let me take you through the 5 principles of procurement, strategic procurement. Coherence, there has to be end to end same logic. Before we are engaging with the market, supply market, we must understand that the aims and goals and objectives of the organization. Alignment, as we have been discussing predominantly, there has to be an alignment with not only the team but also with the objectives. A professional and structured approach is required to generate good ideas, good outcomes. Procurement function must be or is required to be open enough to have an open mind to accept the new ideas, to accept the new processes, the new suppliers, and there has to be a commerciality, commercial angles. Whatever actions we are managing, whatever actions we are taking, we should have an aspect in our mind that it is generating commercial benefits to the organizations. So, friends, this if you have a function which is having these principles, and whatever disconnect I discussed in the previous slide, if there is no disconnect, then obviously you can consider that your function is strategic. Now, how that strategic function is important and how that is going to help business making more agile and more resilient, of course, we are going to discuss in the subsequent slides. But before that, some more aspects like about what is missing. There is clear cut missing element of understanding the fact that if you are generating any idea of cost, if you are generating the cost reduction within your function, it is as good as generating a sale for your business. And that understanding has to be made clear, or that understanding is missing today in many of the businesses. uh, because if you are saving say $1, just a small example I have shown here, obviously the procurement manages huge amount of savings, so that saving is as good as getting a good sale, new sale for the business. That understanding is missing, and the complete understanding of the supply market is also missing in many of the functions. That also creates a little bit of disconnect between the procurement and strategic procurement, considering the function as a uh, or terming that function as a procurement rather than strategic procurement. Moving on, data is not readily available. What has happened is that I have seen many organizations, great organizations, wherever I have visited, but wherever I have been invited as a speaker, the data is not is unorganized because there's no emphasis or importance given to it. So because of that data, even though whatever great system you have, whatever great digital tool you have, that will be of no use because your team is struggling to purify the data and generate the wrong insights out of that, and that doesn't create a good picture for the overall function. One more aspect is there, Like whatever decision or whatever long-term action we plan in the function, I'm specifically referring to a procurement function. The one size fits all approach is being adopted. Like whatever strategy we decide, whatever categorization we decide, and we say that, okay, let's adopt this particular approach for the coming year or the coming future. The one size fits all approach is being taken or implemented, which is actually not beneficial, because every category, every SKU, every supply base has its own uh, limitations, has its own challenges, and is different. Actually, you cannot say that one strategy will fit for everything, for every supply base. The exceptions or the variations, they are considered as, circumstantial or historical, and those learnings are not captured, and those the preventive measures are not taken to avoid its recurrence. So that is the missing element today. I was just coming across one of the study of A.T. Kearney, quite strange actually, but since this study is of 2019, I thought, let me share this with you. What is typically observed by A.T. Kearney when they did a global survey of the uh, procurement functions? You can consider even supply chain professionals also. They have observed that still in many organizations there is huge scope available for the procurement to add the value, but at the same time, this function is not considered as a strategic function. It is considered merely as a resource function, because the function doesn't operate that way. Many companies do not have spend under contract. Friends, once you have spend under contract, you can accrue a lot of benefits. You can apply any type of strategy if the spend is under contract. If it is not under contract, then you will end up having maverick spend, maverick buying, and you will not be able to bind the suppliers for certain deliverables. And many respondents, like 31% of the respondents, admitted that they do not participate, or they are not even allowed to participate in the make versus buy decision. It's a global survey. It's not only related to India or it's any specific country. It's a global survey, and that too it's of 2019. So I just thought of putting it over here. Typically, it is a graph showing that the leaders are doing fairly well in terms of certain deliverables, be it the deliverable related to price reduction and working capital. When we say working capital, it is inventory management and, of course, DPO management, days purchasing outstanding management, which we will be covering in any of the upcoming webinar. But in terms of other operation efficiencies, quantity reduction, supply risk, you will find that even leaders as well as their other team members who are not leaders in the business, they are fairly their performance is not fair. So that is the you can say the condition of the supply chain as a function across the globe. Having said all this, and having also said that, okay, what is missing, what is the strategic function of procurement, how it is different from purchasing and all, we must start our journey with the goals of the strategic procurement. We must understand why strategic procurement is important, what are its goals, and is the function where you all are working is a strategic procurement or not. Obviously, with the help of strategic procurement, we can achieve lot of cost savings. When I say cost savings, it's not only material cost savings, or it's not only the savings which are generated out of the uh, negotiations and all, be it value engineering, be it gross margin improvement initiative, be it the cost re-engineering initiative. So lot of cost reduction is achieved, and that obviously hits the bottom line of the organization. And as I said, it is as good as bringing a new sale. Second is risk management. Risk is the most important buzzword which we have been coming across in the recent past. The organizations who were able to identify the risk, anticipate the risk, and take actions to mitigate those risks, they survived, and they achieved a they did not have much of a turbulence, or but did not experience much of a turbulence during the pandemic period. And I can proudly say that my organization ACG is really was one of the great organization where they were able to anticipate the risk and take the actions accordingly. So strategic procurement definitely helps in managing the risk. How that is visible in the subsequent slide. Supplier management base or supply base is managed by strategic procurement. This is very important. What happens is that we consider suppliers as mere suppliers in the overall business. They are actually our supply chain partners. If you involve them from the initial stage, they can add a lot of value in your business. You can generate a lot of value in the course of all future transactions with them. That's why we must call them as a supply chain partners. And that management of supply base is very much important, which is being done by strategic procurement. Procurement innovation is something which is being managed with the help of strategic procurement, because it supports or it encourages the idea generation, uh, you can say, projects. It encourages people to generate more and more ideas, be it ideas related to cost management, be it ideas related to total quality management, inventory management. But innovation is the most important objective or goal of strategic procurement. And sustainability, green procurement and sustainability, definitely they are going to become most important expectations of the global customers going ahead. Already it has started, and those who are having sustainable procurement or sustainable business, they will stay afloat in the business. And that is what exactly strategic procurement does. We have been discussing about strategy and strategic creation. So finally we have come to that particular topic. Basically, why it is important? Because yes, if you must understand, or a procurement team must understand, that what are the organization's objectives, goals, and exactly in line with that you must manage all your procurement processes. Then only you will be able to meet the expectations of the stakeholders. So what happens? First is company strategy, which is a long term strategy. Then based on that, the category strategy or procurement strategy. Of course, procurement strategy and category strategy, and finally your purchasing processes in line with that organization strategy. That is how the procurement strategy is being created. Strategy can be of various initiatives. We are going to see that what is procurement strategy. Is it whatever business? For example, if one particular business says that I want to deal, or my our objective is to deal in customized value solutions, so does it mean that procurement has to exactly copy that strategy? Not not right, not correctly. You can consider that as your strategy of organization, and basically make your entire procurement processes in line in line with that particular strategy, to make sure that you are supporting the business's long-term goals, or this particular strategy. Important aspect here is that we should select a relevant procurement strategy. Let's not imitate, or let's not replicate a similar company who is into similar business of yours, and we are copying their strategy. It doesn't work, because your business, your supply chain, your supply base has its own limitations, has its own challenges. It is working in different environments. So strategy which is very relevant to your business, you must adopt that particular strategy. As I mentioned, what is procurement strategy about? It can be a combination of all this. be it cost reduction strategy, risk management strategy, supplier management strategy, or typically a combination of all these initiatives. Generally, what happens? One particular aspect is captured, and then and that is being considered as a vital element in the strategy, and the entire strategy is derived out of that. And then, of course, there are other supporting factors. For example, if we see the organizations who were not able to anticipate the risk during the COVID period, their strategy for the future was when the pandemic was over, to make a supply chain as a risk free, or the business the risk free. And then the risk management becomes the key factor in deciding the strategy of their business. Obviously, the procurement then start taking actions when they replicate this particular aspect in their strategy creation, and then start taking actions accordingly. Then the global geographical de-risking, identifying the risk within the supply chain. All these are the subsequent actions which procurement team does. But there, the main important aspect is risk management. Of course, there will be then supplier management will be there. While you are anticipating the risk, while we are managing the risk, cost reduction is also there. But the major uh, aspect is, depending on the nature of the business, depending on the objective of the stakeholders, and then the other parameters are supporting to it. It's a 7-step process of strategy creation. One is obviously the spend in every endeavor of the procurement, cost management, alternate development, then even inventory management also, de-risking of the supply base. Spend plays a very, very important role. And analyze that spend, identify our proper needs, what exact needs are there in terms of technical specifications, in terms of commercial requirements, because we are not only discussing with the price aspect with the suppliers. Besides discussing the technical terms, we also want to bind suppliers on various terms, be it warranty management, be it in liquidated damages clause. So many things are there. So identify your overall needs, including the technical needs. Analyze the supply market. We must understand in what market supplier is functioning. Use that Porter's five forces model. It's really a very important tool to analyze the supplier's overall capability, the overall supplier's business. We will cover this in one of the upcoming session. Of course, in the effective negotiations, I'm going to throw a little bit light on it. Then you initiate the RFP process, set your clear objectives within your function, organization's goals, objectives, invest in the digital tools, and finally, outline the strategy. Decide your strategy now, finally, execute that strategy, and most importantly, implement a review mechanism to monitor that strategy every you can say every fortnight, every month, depending upon the uh, type of strategy that you have decided, or depending on the gestation period of that particular deliverable. Strategy management is development is very important tool, as I said. But how the strategy is created, you cannot simply say, okay, this is my spend and now I will use my intuition and then decide strategy accordingly. There are various tools. Out of that, one I'm just presenting here, Kraljic matrix, you must have heard of. Peter Kraljic developed this particular tool wherein he categorized, or he worked on a theme that let us map our entire spend into two basic categories, and then add that spend into various quadrants: supply power and supply risk, and its impact on the profitability of the business. With the help of that, what Kraljic has decided, or what Kraljic has mentioned, take out your spend, and then put your spend or all your suppliers into the basket, which will show how the uh, supplier is faring in these two terms. Basically, how important it is, how in terms of criticality of your business, how is it going to create the impact on your profitability. We will see this here. So this is the Kraljic matrix. At the bottom, if you see supply risk, the take out the spend, apply 80-20 rule generally, because if your spend consists of thousands of suppliers, which is not the case typically these days, but yes, some companies still have plenty of suppliers. So take out the spend, apply 80-20 rule, like 80% of the spend managed by 20% of the suppliers. So consider only those suppliers, put them into this particular quadrant, like against each supplier add the parameters like how critical he is in terms of risk. If that supplier closes his facility, how it will create the impact in your business. Is that supplier having any alternate available? How flexible that supplier is? How technically competent that supplier is? Is that supplier monopolistic, or there is huge competition available over there? Use this as your score weightage, and add score against each of these parameters. Of course, it is not 100% formula driven, but yes, it will give you 80% of the guidelines to create the a matrix, create a particular table wherein you can add various scores, and then based on the average of the score, you can consider put the suppliers into various categories. Some suppliers may be considered as a strategic suppliers, some might be considered in leverage category, then the non-critical and bottleneck. The objective is that, as I mentioned in the initial slide, one size fits all approach cannot be adopted, and that is why we have to categorize the suppliers based on their actual state in the business, in the industry, and then adopt a proper strategies. Now, what a typical strategist? Suppose if you see that there are suppliers in the leverage categories, absolutely you don't have to worry about those suppliers. Simply keep on exploiting your full purchasing power. When I say exploiting, not create a strain between the supplier buyer relationship. I'm saying exploit lot of try to get maximum value out of those supply chain partners, because there are plenty of suppliers available. You will not have any fear of supplier going out of the business. You will make another supplier available. Then if you will have some suppliers, obviously some suppliers may fall into all these categories. It's not that all your suppliers will be strategic or all will be non-critical. It may not be the case. So once you see that there are suppliers in strategic items category, then make sure that a strategy of having a long-term relationship is implemented. There you cannot exploit your spend, there you cannot exploit your buying power, because there the limited suppliers are available. Supplier buyer relationship plays a very important role over there. Then you will see that there are non-critical items where simply, example I have mentioned here, office supplies. You can simply go and automate your purchasing. You have to only keep on buying those items by, you can even give it to some third party. 3PL people are these days buying such kind of items, so that you can focus more on strategic items and bottleneck items, and to some extent on leverage items. Then finally, the bottleneck items. Here you will have to have product substitution as one of the initiative or strategy, or innovation as one of the strategy. So this is how the Kraljic matrix teaches you or teaches us to create these strategies out of the spend. One of the important tool which I came across during my interaction with one of the consultant. I worked with McKinsey. I worked with A.T. Kearney, I worked with KPMG, Deloitte. The purchasing chessboard is one of the tool which they have developed. This purchasing chessboard has 64 various methods. Friends, some of these methods even I have also not used. But yes, we are going to discuss a lot on this in our upcoming session. Today, just understand that there is one tool available which is being made by A.T. Kearney. There are various methods which we can use. Then there are some levers, and from that levers we can decide our strategies. So why A.T. Kearney has developed this particular tool? Because it has been observed that in last couple of decades, the businesses are going through uncertain business. Business is actually into uncertain world today. We are seeing so many things which were not even anticipated. Prognosticators have not even anticipated it many years before. So everything is uncertain today. Customer expectations are also changed quite a lot. So traditional tools are not giving the desired results, and that's why IT Kearney developed this particular tool. I just move fast because I think we are coming close to the session. Then there are 4 strategies and 16 levers. Very important tool. One has to use it. Yeah. What it has done? It has actually created one particular chessboard wherein it has put various methods, and then supply power and demand power against that. These suppliers are plotted in that particular hello in that particular chessboard, and there is a methodology available to it. Like, okay, you understand the parameters of the supply power, understand the parameters of demand power, assign a score to each parameter, take out the average, and then you see where exactly the supplier fits or the number of suppliers fit on the chessboard. Once you do this exercise, you will see that there are these are the 16 levers as I mentioned, and these levers are used in that particular 64 methods to derive the 4 strategies out of that. Which are those 4 strategies? Change the nature of the demand, manage the spend, leverage the competition among suppliers, and finally seek the alignment or advantage with the suppliers. In this table, you will see against each strategy, the 4 levers are mentioned, and against each lever, the methodologies are mentioned. So, example, if you want to see that for a strategy of change nature of demand, what is to be done? Respecification, uh, lowering down some of the parameters which are probably of no use, or changing the design aspects, technical data mining. These are some of the levers that we can use to manage this particular strategy. And then there are various methodologies available for each strategy. So typically, A.T. Kearney chessboard will really help you in giving a lot of thought to your mind and deciding some of the methods which probably we have not used in the course of our business. Strategic procurement has various KPIs. Out of that, I have mentioned some over here. Cost management, obviously. Purchasing price variation. That means one has to manage the procurement within the available budget. If it is not, then obviously we are going with the cost increases. Spend under management, SUM. As I mentioned, your spend has to be managed within the contract, and you should avoid the maverick spend. Quality, FTR percentage, that is first time right percentage, that is one of the KPI of strategic procurement. And of course, alignment, management of the contract, compliance of the contract is are some of the is one of the KPI. There are various other KPIs like working capital management is there, but typically it is managed by all the functions. So I thought it appropriate to mention here the specific KPIs of strategic procurement. Some of the tools or rather important tools of strategic procurement are strategic sourcing and category management. a brief we are going to discuss, because strategic sourcing, people generally gets confused between strategic sourcing, strategic procurement. If you see in various forums, people talk about sourcing and they say that it is a strategic procurement only. No, strategic procurement is all a complete. Its scope is to start from acquiring the source, understanding the needs, to finally make sure that you are managing all the aspects like identify the source, by uh, indulge into procurement, quality management, inventory management. In some companies, logistics is also attached to it, whereas sourcing is a typical process which is related to identifying the source, maybe within, maybe domestically or maybe globally. Spend analysis is one of the important document, or one of the important aspect which is used by strategic sourcing. Then it also does the supplier level analysis, industry level analysis, and sourcing strategy, the best practices. TCO, life cycle cost or total cost of ownership, is the aspect on which strategic sourcing functions. It does not focus, it typically does not focus on the initial purchasing price of the product. It focuses on the overall operations cost, initial cost, and then derive a total cost of ownership of that particular product. And this is very important uh, aspect, or very important tool used by strategic sourcing to identify the required suppliers in their business. Of course, then it also carries out the SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats within the supply chain, in internal as well as external. Category management has been an important tool in strategic procurement. It is nothing but segmenting and categorizing your spend into the required buckets, and then and then making sure that the proper approach is being adopted to the various categories. The categories could be mm, plenty. Just mentioned here, like I have just mentioned few of them, be it in one particular engineering industry, office supplies, manufacturing items, direct bought out items, maintenance sort of items. So once you have items into these categories, you can use that category for generating various insights. Okay, for then you can see that for direct bought out items, how many suppliers are there supplying the products from your country and globally. Then you can apply a different strategy to the global suppliers and domestic suppliers. Like that, the strategy helps you. It also helps you in understanding the inventory levels, inventory management aspect, and it is different from strategic sourcing. Again, people also sometimes feel that it is a strategic sourcing only. No, category management is only categorization and giving input to the sourcing team for then taking the subsequent course of actions. Strategic procurement also leads to lots of cost reductions, or helps in achieving the real earnings to the business, because it believes in improving the profitability or bottom line of the business by way of generating more and more ideas related to material cost, related to value engineering, related to cost re-engineering. And then the agility, how supply chain, how procurement helps in creating agility to the supply chain. Because what is agility? You should be able to approach any uncertain demand of the customers uh, in the VUCA world today. When we say VUCA world, it is volatile, uncertain, uh, resilient. How agility, how procurement helps in making the supply chain function, or the procurement function, or the business agile? There are some levers. One is obviously it helps in giving insights about how much vendor managed inventory we can meet, we can manage, how the virtual integration can help. When we say virtual integration between all the functions, and then the culture of shared efforts. Like, okay, you have efforts, whatever efforts you are taking internally, replicate it at suppliers end. Whatever initiatives you are managing internally, manage at suppliers end also. And then the end objective is market sensitivity, quick response to the supplier uncertain world. Strategic procurement definitely helps in risk management because it works on 5 steps: identifies the risk, analyzes the overall risk, then it ranks the risk, and then take steps to mitigate that risk and start monitoring that risk to make sure that it is not getting recurred in future. And last here, the resilience, how procurement can help, strategic procurement can help making the supply chain more resilient. What is resilience? Basically, an ability of an organization or a function, I would say, to see the future, what risks are likely to come, how you are capable enough to manage those risks, and do you have an ability to recover from that risk, or rather you should have an ability to recover from that risk if that risk becomes a reality. So that is what is resilience. And as I mentioned, only the resilient companies have survived. I have seen many of my supply chain partners, those who were having resiliency in their business, they survived during this pandemic period. So how does strategic procurement helps? It targets the high impact sources, and then it uses the tools like, partnering with them, then also share the ideas or share the initiatives or implementing the initiatives at their end, the initiatives what we have implemented in our business. Most importantly, it helps in geographically de-risking the supply chain. When we say geographical de-risking, if you are in a one particular country, and if you are earlier, if you see, near shoring was something very important or very important aspect. Like, people used to, or industries used to believe in having their supply base in and around their factories. But with COVID, it has been proved that one particular area was being declared as a red zone. So your entire supply chain, if it is in that particular area, your business is stuck. Whereas in my organization, I have seen that since our suppliers were located geographically, for each supplier or for each atom category, there was some source available in some other part of the country as well as outside, to a large extent, that we could survive our overall pandemic. And that's what exactly strategic procurement does. So this is what the strategic procurement does typically. Most importantly, friends, strategic procurement helps in improving the forecasting techniques. Instead of having the techniques of normal forecasting, it understands the overall demand. It helps takes help of it take help of analytics, generate the proper demand. It works with sales function as well to refine that particular demand, and then with the help of that demand, then start taking the advanced procurement actions. That's how strategic procurement helps in making the supply chain more resilient. Sorry. Okay. So that's all about today. You can approach me on my email ID, which is mentioned here. Obviously, this presentation, I am sure it will be made available to all of you. If not here, either on some other platform. I would like to invite you for our next session, which is on 4th of February, and it is related to effective negotiations. So, friends, within this 1 hour session, I tried my level best to cover the maximum things about maximum stuff about strategic procurement. Thank you very much for being patient in understanding each and every aspect of the strategic procurement.